Hello, it seems that we are online. I see that we have good connection. You should hear me and see me well. Please tell me, is everything fine with video and audio? You can put your pluses here, just as always. Should be okay. Anyway, guys, time may differ. It doesn't really matter because anyway we have recording, so if you can't watch it online, so you can watch it later. It doesn't matter. Okay. It seems that everything is fine. Not so many people here right now. It's also expected. Okay, we can probably start. So, just a quick reminder. You had assignment to complete two tasks. I mean two modules, containerization and database and ORM. For containerization, you had to implement containerization for your application and database as well. You had some desired implementation details, so you should have two separated Docker files for your application and for your database. You should have Docker Compose YAML files that orchestrate those images into one service. Um, you have to implement scanning for security vulnerabilities, and you had to push your image to your personal or private repository on Docker Hub. Both options are okay. You can provide us with link, with screenshot, it's fine. And you had some additional implementation details, so you had to have user-defined bridge. Your container should auto restart after crash, and application is restarting if you change something in SRC folder of your application. And also database files and logs should be stored in volumes instead of containers, so they shouldn't be overwritten on container restart. Also, your final size of Docker image with application should be less than 500 megabytes. Um, and as I mentioned, you have to have script with vulnerability scanning and build image pushed to Docker Hub. Also, you had to implement replacement of in-memory database with real database, specifically Postgres, and you had to use ORM, specifically type ORM or Prisma. And also you have advanced scope here for creation of all this database schema. You have to use migrations. Uh, you haven't you shouldn't use sync option of type ORM, for example, because it's not safe. Uh, it's not stable time up to time, and you have to put variables for connection to database in .env, and it should be put there. Also, you should use type ORM decorators or Prisma relations to create relations between entities. And as additional point for correct implementation of containerization task, if you don't need local Postgres installation, if it's running from container, in this case you have extra 30 points for this. And basic scope is just that you have your stuff related to work with some entities, that it works with real database instead of in-memory database. So you have some caveats here. It's the fact that you have forfeits for each failing test. So your tests should work correctly regardless of your data source, and that was main point. And some our common forfeits for no separated development branch, no pull request, incorrect description, less than 3 commits, and uh, forfeits for linter errors or compilation errors based on local configs. So you have to you can fix your configs, you can change it if you need, but you shouldn't have errors based on your own config. So yeah, that's expected. Okay. Let's probably take a look at this work. Today we have work for review from student with GitHub ID Eternal Rival, and I already cloned his repository and switched to dev branch. Uh, I highly remind you to do not forget to do this, because time up to time it may happen. Also, we will install dependencies, and after that, let's take a look at README. We should have instruction how to install and run our application. Okay, we should use 18 version of Node.js. Uh, Actually, we have it. We have to clone repository, install dependencies. We can run .env. We can create .env file using script. Okay, let's try to do it. npm run env generate host localhost. Yes, yes, yes. All default. Okay. .env is created. It contains necessary variables. Okay, cool. Uh, Looks interesting that we have this colorized input here. Uh, okay, or just copy .env file from example. It's not that interesting. Make sure that you are not running any third-party containers applications that may conflict with current application. Yeah, it's important because this port that is used by default, um, it's often used in different applications, in different databases. You can use 4,000 port for some other application. So yes, you have to check that you don't have conflicts. For this, I use Docker Desktop. I highly recommend you to use this option like you can check that you don't have running containers. You can check that your images and volumes are clean, and you can run clean purge data, and everything will be deleted. I will do it because we want to make sure that if something goes wrong, it goes wrong because of like student mistakes and not because of our local environment. Okay, we cleaned up everything. Let's take a look what should we do next. We have to run npm run docker app. Okay, let's do it. We can see that we create volumes here, we create network, and we are pulling stuff from docker registry, and we build image. Namely, we build images because we have separated images for API and for database here. If you have some questions, you can ask it in live streaming channels. I have in one cross-check in the screenshot Docker Hub with compressed image size. Should I consider the size of the size shown by Docker images command? You should consider size of builded image, so you should use size from Docker images command. Yes. Okay, let's take a look. We are still building stuff. And as you can see, images created by layers. So order of commands here is the same as we have in our Docker file. Okay, we have running application, and actually it should have like exposed port. Let's check Docker Compose YAML, environment port. Yes, we have this port mapping, so we should have our API on this 4000 port. Let's try to run tests then. npm run test. Let's check that we have the script and everything is fine. Pam pam pam. Yes, this is normal test. All tests seems to be passed. Also, we have this Docker test script that runs tests in container. Let's try to do it as well. But in general, if tests are passed, we can assume that API works correctly. We will take a look at the code and check that our code actually works with real database and not in memory database. Those tests are passed. Yes, Docker Hub shows compressed image size. That's why I tell student to check size by Docker images command. Can we save logs and PG data in one volume? Let's take a look at assignment. As far as I remember, yes. We haven't specified it, as far as I remember. Database files and log to be stored in volumes instead of container. If it's stored in one volume, okay. But it would be better to store it in different volumes, to be honest. But it's not mistake in scope of scoring for this task. Okay, what should we check in scope of containerization and Docker subtask? README has instruction how to run application. Yes, we've seen it. User-defined bridge is created and configured. Let's take a look at Docker Compose YAML. It's pretty simple because we should have like networks stuff, and we have this configuration in Docker Compose YAML file, so it's pretty enough. Um, okay, container auto restart after crash. Uh, let's try to crash our container. Um, we can probably throw error here. Mm, Error is thrown and I'm not sure it restarts. It seems that not really. Okay, let's try to take a look how it works. What do we have here for restart policy? Mm, Restart unless stopped. Mhm. Uh, it seems that we have configured policy, but unfortunately, but this is like application crash. If we will have container crash, it should restart in this case. So probably configuration of restart for containers is okay in scope of this implementation. Pum, 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 pum. But what should we definitely check is that when we change something in our files in src folder, we have restarted container. Let's try to like add comment here and save file. Hmm. I don't see any changes, so it seems that application is not restarted when we change files in src folder because I don't see new logs. Mm. So this probably should be considered as completed. This one, not really. Database files and logs to be stored in volumes instead of container. To check this, we should take a look at, first of all, we have to take a look at Docker Compose YAML file, and we can see that we have volumes here, and we bind, why do we store? Uh-huh. We have this mapping to DB data and DB logs, and it's stored in volumes. And we also can check Docker volumes ls, oh sorry, Docker volume. And we have these two volumes, and we can check where we actually have all this stuff. Docker volume inspect, and we need to provide with this command with volume name. And we check that actually, yes, we have this at local drive. We have this mount point. We know where it's stored. Okay. Final size of Docker image with application is less than 500 megabytes. We can see it in Docker desktop. Its size is less than 500 megabytes, or we can use a console command like Docker images, and we can see size here. So this requirement is met. Um, what else? We should use specific images. How to check it? We can go to Docker file, and we can see that it's not built like on top of image of Ubuntu or something else. We use specific image here. We use Node 18 Alpine version. Alpine means that this is like minimized version which contains only necessary stuff that you need to run your Node.js environment, and it contains less system stuff, and it requires less space because of this. And if we will take a look at uh, database Docker file, we can see that it also built on top of specific Postgres image. So this requirement is met. Postgres container is not configured as dependency for application container. Let's take a look at Docker Compose, and we should see option depends on. Yes, we have this definition for API container, and it depends on database. So it should be started after database container is started, and it is correct because we need our database running to correctly run our application. This requirement is met. Docker Compose YAML shouldn't contain hard-coded variables. And if we will take a look at Docker Compose, we have this specific syntax with $sign and environment section, and we don't have like hard-coded port value. For example, we could have it like this, and it wouldn't correct, but in this case, we take it from .env file. This happens because of how Docker Compose works. It automatically takes stuff from environment file, but it can be configured. You can store it in different places. But anyway, it's taken from .env. Commits after deadline, missing PR, it seems to be not applicable, so I wouldn't waste time on this, but you should check it during cross-check. What else do we have here? If we will take a look at our Docker file for application, we build it on top of specific image. After that, we create working directory. We copy package and package log.json to our working directory. And after that, we run npm install command. After that, we copy src folder. And after, not only src, we copy whole folder from our local drive to our container. After that, we run in npm run build, and after that, we run start dev script. Why do we separately copy package.json and src folder? Not src, okay. Everything else we also copy as well, because Docker images are built by layers, and layers that change rarely, they should be at the top of the file. So we assume that we like change our dependencies rarely, then we change code. So this should be upper, this should be closer to the bottom. This is correct. And what do we have in database? We run commands that create a directory. We run commands that change owner actually, and we run this command that enables login and set its directory. Okay, seems to be fine. Should tests run locally or inside the container? At least they should run locally, because your port should be exposed and there should be no difference where your application running, in container or it restarts if cmd command in Docker file is wrong. Uh, it was meant that if your container crashes, it should restart. So probably, unfortunately, I have no idea how to crash your container at the moment, but you can assume that cmd command is correctly in your Docker file. Were we supposed to configure subnet gateway? Nope, you just have to add user-defined bridge. You don't need like advanced configuration. Update failed on this error. What do you mean app didn't failed on this error? Your application has crashed. Login Postgres. are disabled by default. Is it necessary to enable the log collector? Uh, it would be nice to enable the log collector because yes, you wouldn't have logs. And as we can see, we enabled log collector here running this by running this command. But at least in scope of this task, you need to have volumes for Postgres logs. So if log collector is not enabled, it's not an error in scope of this task. Okay, let's move on. Would exist zero crash container. Uh, Maybe we have no time to check, unfortunately. Okay, so that's nice. You can use this to check it during cross check. Unfortunately, we don't have more time for this task because we need to check code and how it works. Okay, that's basically it. Let's take a look at application code, because I think from functional scope uh, it should be correct if we have tests not failing. Um, do we have something specific here? Type ORM, Prisma, Postgres running inside of Docker container. Nothing specific. Okay, so we still have this. Ah, I had one unanswered question. Why it's not restarting, it's running in dev mode? Probably your binding mount works incorrectly, because as far as I can see, you just put it into volume and you need to have, I don't remember exactly how it's named, you have to specify binding mount here. So if you will just put src to volume, it will not detect changes properly. Maybe I am wrong, but probably it looks like this. Maybe other students have another suggestions for you. Okay, we still have all this configuration in Bootstrap file, in Bootstrap function. We create a Nest application. We connect stuff at top level like global pipes. We set some environment variables. Mm, and we run application here. And also we connect type ORM here, because type ORM has this awesome package, Nest.js type ORM, which is designed specifically for interactions between Nest.js application and type ORM. It provides a lot of cool stuff, like it provides all necessary imports, it provides decorators, and so on. So if you work with Nest.js and type ORM, I highly recommend you to use this package and not deal with just type ORM and how to connect it to Nest.js. However, you can build your own module and connect it manually, but it's not necessary. Okay, we have this boilerplate stuff, nothing interesting. We have some shared folder. Let's take a look at this later. Exceptions, helpers, call interfaces, pipes. Okay, we will take a look at this later. We have this database stuff. So we have a data source which is used to connect to database from type ORM package. And here we provide some stuff based on our environment variables. Username, password for database. We have this synchronized false. So we have to run migrations to create our schema. Also, we provide here a database name and have fallback for default port, and also we provide paths to entities, classes, and migrations, because type ORM needs this to run to correctly connect to database. First migration is not a good naming. Probably it would be nice to name it like Bootstrap or init or something else. And we can see that yes, this is class that implements migration interface. It has two methods, up and down. Up creates our schema, and down rolls it back. And we can see that okay, it creates tables, it sets some constraints based on type ORM decorators, and on down we just remove these constraints, and after that we remove our tables. Looks pretty simple. Okay, what do we have in API folders? We have API for users, and actually this stuff related to module controller shouldn't be changed a lot. Yes, we have this controller decorator, which defines that this is controller. We have uh, our default interceptors, and we have these methods for handling of get, post, put, and delete requests. We are not much interested in this because we already took a look at this on review of previous task. Um, what is really interesting here is that we have imports of type ORM for feature. Uh, we need this to use type ORM decorators in our service, and we need to take a look at service. And yes, we using dependency injection to inject a type ORM repository for user entity. You can see that this is TypeScript generic that accepts type of model that should be used, and thanks to this, your TypeScript understands that if you save entity, you return this entity as well. So we use repository methods like save, find one by. Here we find the entity by ID. Uh, Also, we use update. We find entity and save updated entity if we need. Also, we have this remove method. So we changed data source. We didn't change a lot our controller and module, and it still works correctly. What also changed? Here we have these decorators from type ORM to create our entities that will be used to create a Postgres table. We have primary generated column decorator. This used for primary key, and we can see that this is ID. Um, Also, we have column decorator to specify a specific column. Also, we can combine it with class transformer decorators like exclude to omit some properties. And also, we have a lot of different decorators like type decorator that converts type from TypeScript to Postgres types. And also, we have these Swagger API decorators. I've seen that we have some questions. Okay, it was restarting during development. I have no idea why it was restarting. Maybe everything broke after crash. Not sure. I think decorator composition for Swagger is well worth a look, even if nothing. We will take a look. If it's reused across the application, it worth attention. But probably sometimes you don't need to have like a lot of abstraction layers. Can you review Fab's logic? I have trouble with while implementation, so I'm interested in a solution. Yes, we will take a look at everything. Okay, mm, let's move on. Uh, Actually, yes, as Roman mentioned, he created some Swagger property decorators, and we will take a look at this also. This is our user entity. We have these DTO classes. We've already seen this at previous task. And what do we have here? We have decorators here. API create decorator. We use apply decorators, and it allows us to apply multiple decorators to not duplicate this option. Mm, in general, it looks okay because yes, you have a lot of stuff here, and if you will duplicate this in every if you will duplicate this in every place where you use it, it would look verbose. API delete. API param. API find all. Okay, response. It seems that you have duplication here for some reason. I'm not sure why. Because probably this is not necessary. It looks pretty same. It's just overwritten, so we can remove this. Forbidden response. Yes, we specify a lot of responses here. Yeah, looks fine. If you can avoid duplication, it's a good idea to avoid it. Okay. Where do we use those decorators? We should use it at controller level. Yeah. We use it at controller level. Okay, cool. What do we have in tracks? We have similar stuff. We still use type ORM for feature, and we provide models here. We provide track here, so type ORM knows with which entity it should work in scope of this model. Pretty same stuff. We use dependency injection to get repository. We use repository default methods. In controller, we still use all those decorators and logic from previous task. What is interesting here is that we have relation for tracks. We use one-to-one relation to artist. Also, we have relation to album. That's correct because one track can be related to only one artist, to only one album. And also on delete, we set it to null. Here we use cascade and we use database stuff to set artist ID and album ID to null on deletion of related entity. And we have join column decorator. That means that artist ID relates to artist ID in corresponding entity. Okay. DTOs, nothing interesting here. By the way, why do we have decorators here and here in shared? probably it's not necessary to have these decorators and users. Am I right? You forget to remove it. Uh-huh. Yeah, you probably just forget to remove it from users. Yeah, don't forget to clean up your code base. But actually, we use not really. In users, we use decorators not from shared folder. It used from decorators from users. But okay, never mind. I got it. Okay, let's take a look at artists. Should be pretty same. Yes, shared decorators in controller. Type ORM for related entities because artists can relate to album and track as well. So we need to use for feature for these two. Inside of service, we use dependency injection. Uh, what else? Mm, Data transfer objects, nothing interesting. Albums, pretty same data transfer objects as in previous task. Album entity uses one-to-one relation to artist. And all those standard decorators for primary key, for regular columns, for Swagger API, join column decorator. Uh, Nothing interesting in controller and standard service. What should we note here that we removed logic of setting related entities IDs to null from service to database side. I think this is a good solution because we don't need to handle this manually. This really related to entities relation, and if it can be handled on Postgres side, it should be done there. Why not? Okay, let's take a look at favorites. The most interesting part here. Okay, we still reuse those decorators, and once again we use local decorators. Probably if you want to use shared decorators, you could make it more generic and reuse it across all endpoints because really it looks pretty similar. It differs only like in those parts. Uh, and I think you could avoid some duplication as well additionally. But okay, it works and this is enough for me. Favorites response DTO is pretty standard. Uh, Entities has relations to corresponding entities. And if we will delete, for example, related track, we will remove favorite entity because we have this on delete cascade option inside of relation decorator. And we have for other entities the same stuff. It should work correctly. We have exceptions here, which are actually just custom errors. Uh, One minor suggestion for improvement, it should start with uppercase letter. What else do we have here? We have generic interface for favorite, ID favorite. What else? Pretty same logic as in previous task. And let's take a look at services. It uses artist repository, album repository, and track repository, and they are provided from dependency injection. Find all. We create array of promises for this operation. We can find entity with relations using this relations option. Also, we use, oh, interesting, we use promise all settled API. How all settled differs from promise all? Mm, by the way, I'm not sure if your promises don't fail, it should be reliable because your promise shouldn't just it just will not return result and it should be correctly. Actually, promise all, in my opinion, would be enough here because if you have like a failed request and you need to split split successful promises from erroneous, you do something wrong here. But okay, anyway, promise all settled, return all promises regardless of their status. And it has status, which means that it's rejected or fulfilled. And we can have like some additional custom logic depending on how promise has been resolved or rejected. Find favorite artist, favorite album, track, create, remove. Nothing specific here. We just use like default methods from corresponding repository. Not that interesting. I mean, from implementation side. Pam, 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 pam. Okay. We took a look at shared decorators. We have this shared exception. We have colorize helper. Actually, I think it's used on generation of, yes, it's used inside of generate environment file script. Mm, what else? Is database error. Error is query failed error and database error. Uh-huh. Interesting. Query failed error and database error. Probably we use some properties from database error. That's why we join query failed error with database error. This is just a type guard. Okay, API decorator interface, name type DTO, pipes, parse UIT pipe. We explicitly set version 4 and we can't provide version option to this pipes constructor. Uh-huh. Okay. What else do we have here? Probably we have take a look at everything. And yeah, but why do you expect rejects here? Let's take a look at what typeorm repository find returns. Repository, pam pam pam. Mm, Find options. Repository, probably we had some advanced API reference here. Find one. Mm, we can actually take a look at type definition. Repository, find. Uh, it seems that it doesn't throw error, so it returns promise with array of entities, and if it will not find entity, it will just return empty array by default. So this fallback is not necessary, and usage of promise all settled is not necessary here, at least for me. Got to remove this guard. It was used before, but unused now. You can use some like linter options, which helps you to understand that something is not used. I try to create one config for data source and type ORM and reuse it because they are similar. Mm, okay. What interesting do we have here? In addition, let's try to run linter and of course remove my changes. Lint f. Okay, it worked without errors. Uh, let's try to build. It uses TypeScript compilator underneath. If we will have some errors, we will see it here. Okay, seems to be fine. Also, we can use this Docker Scout script that will check for vulnerabilities. Scout is not a Docker command. Interesting. Maybe I used like outdated version, but it seems that my Docker desktop doesn't understand it. Is it works locally for you? Yeah, I mean, maybe I have outdated version of Docker. Not sure why it's not working. Yes. We can try to. We can try to install this CLI plugin. And after that, we can try to run this command again. And let's try to run it again. Docker Scout. No credential found for Docker. Yes, I'm not logged in. Okay, let's not waste time for this. It should work because we have a valid command and I just need to log in. Don't want to waste time on this right now. Also, we have scripts for creation and generation of TypeORM migrations based on your application code. Actually, if we will remove this migration and if we will run generation script again, pum, 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 pum. Let's check how it works. npm run type orm generate. We had stuff in readme how to generate migration. Yeah, we need to provide migration name equal to bootstrap. Ah, it doesn't see changes in data. Yeah, we could we should have changes in database, and after that we can run migration to detect those changes. But okay, let's not waste time on this. That's it from this task. Let's take a look at what you need to do next. You have two subtasks, but you have only 1 week because there are not so many things to do. First of all, you need to implement custom login service. Yes, Nest.js logs many stuff out of the box, but you can implement your own login service and use it for login. And of course, as we do with many other things in Nest.js, we provide this service using dependency injection where it's needed. Mm, What do we need to log? We need to log incoming request stuff, at least the URL, query parameters, and body of request. And also you need to log response with status code. Also, you need to implement custom exception filter and use it for handling errors during request processing, which means that if unexpected error happens, your server should respond with internal server error and some like standard message. Standard message may be internal server error, for example. This is how it works in Nest.js, but you need to implement custom exception filter. Also, login service should log all errors. You need to add listener and login to uncaught exception and unhandled rejection events. Also, you need to write to process stdout or to file or both, and it can be used for login. And also you need to configure login levels for your logger service and store it in environment variable. So it should be configured from .env. What else? You need to implement log file rotation using file size parameter. So what means log file rotation? That, for example, you have file logs1, and when the size of this file reaches like 64 kilobytes, file logs file 2 should be created and file and logs should be placed there. So size of your file shouldn't be more than specified for your logs rotation. Uh, what do we have in scoring? We have score for custom login service implemented. We have score for exception filter. We have score for correct implementation of login for request. Also, we have score for correct error handling and sending appropriate HTTP status code using this exception filter, by the way. Also, we have score for handling of uncaught exception and handled rejection. Also, we have additional score if logs are written to file. We have this additional score for logs rotation. Also, if your logs rotation depends on environment variable that specifies maximal file size, you have plus 10 points for this. Error logs should be written to separate file. You can, for example, you can have one file for all logs, error logs and normal logs, and separated file for error logs. Or you can split it to two files. I mean, they may have no intersection. It depends on how you want to implement it. And also, if you have environment variable to specify login level, and you correctly implemented corresponding functionality, you have plus 20 points for this. And here you see examples that if, for example, you set level 2 in your environment variable, so you should log messages with level 0, 1, and 2, and you shouldn't log 3. And Node.js provides us with login levels for this purpose. What in scope of authentication and authorization, you need to implement uh, authentication and authorization functionality using JSON Web Tokens. Specifically, you should use two tokens, access and refresh token. So user can sign up with new account and provide login and password. And after this user is created, so user can log in with login and password and get access and refresh token. By the way, refresh token is advanced scope. And also refresh token helps to get new pair of access and refresh tokens using valid refresh token. Um, okay. Here you can find definition for endpoints, uh, what is URL, what is accepted, and which statuses should be returned for different situations. Also, you should replace password property with hash. So you can use a bcrypt package to check that stored password equal to sent by user. Why do we need this? Because if some like evil hackers will steal our database, we will still have password encrypted, and if evil hackers don't know salt value that was used for hashing, they will not be able to decrypt user's password. It still be not so useful for them. Also, GVT access token should contain user ID and login in payload and should have expiration time. Expiration time of refresh token should be longer than for access token, of course, because when access token has expired, we use refresh token to obtain new pair of tokens. So if their lifetime will be equal, it will not work. JSON Web Token should be added in authorization header using bearer schema. And all requests except, of course, sign up, login, and doc should check that authorization header with valid token present. And if it's not, uh, you should respond with corresponding HTTP code and error message, uh, specifically with unauthorized code. And also secrets for signing tokens should be stored in .env file. You can see that in .env example, you have this crypt salt, GVT secret key, and so on, expiration time, it should be stored in .env. Uh, what do we have in scoring? We have score for implementation of sign up and login endpoints. You have score for correct conversion of use and storing used password as hash. Also, you have score for correct implementation of access token, and for GVT that contains, I mean, you have score for payload if it contains user ID and login, and if secret key is saved in .env. Also, if authentication is required for accessing all necessary routes, you have points for this. And also, your authentication and authorization stuff shouldn't be duplicated. I mean, it should be inside of separated module and reused across application. It shouldn't be checked in line on every endpoint and so on. Also, in advanced scope, if you implemented refresh endpoint and it works correctly, specifically it returns new pair of tokens, you also will have score for this. Maybe you have some questions. Okay. Docker Scout. Uh-huh. Okay. Yes, that's what we done. Uh-huh. Okay, okay, okay. Revert migration or revert. Yeah, migration should be reverted. By the way, this is the power of migrations because usually we have multiple migrations, like we can have 20 of them, and we may need to remove to check out to specific stage. So it would be necessary to use it for migration. Should we store refresh token or generate refresh token every time? It depends on your needs. Maybe you don't need to store it. You can, at least for passing test, you can generate refresh token every time. So yeah, we don't need to store it in database. Mm. Log levels in S documentation are unordered. They are used in order array for this. Okay, let's take a look. You can map these logs to indices and use indices to it will mean your login level. Um, yeah. So you just need to use those login levels by meaning, but you need to map them to numbers. That's it. Uh, okay. In part 3 task, what about Nest.js GVT? Nest.js GVT. Nope, they are not prohibited. You can use any dependencies you need. Uh, Debug and verbose. I think that verbose includes everything, so this is like lower level than debug. You can use a verbose level as 0 level, for example. Or you can exclude some login levels. Maybe you don't need so many levels. Maybe you need just log, warn, and error. Mm, for me, this first option looks better, to be honest. Okay, I will wait like 3 minutes for your questions, answer them, and we can wrap up. Okay, it seems that we have no questions at the moment. So, mm, okay, Roman is typing, not typing. Okay, you can ask your questions offline if you need. So, thank you for joining, thank you for your activity, your attention, and see you on review of last task. Have a nice day. Bye.